No one's stuck in the quarter.
Yes, this morning is a lovely collection. Are you comfortable there outside of you?
Why don't you pull up a chair?
Did you hurt your knee or something?
I'm not sure what you mean. I'm sorry. Oh, you're welcome.
Calm down.
Sure, you're welcome to stay.
This is a group called the Niners, is it?
Some of them.
So,
I think we'll go ahead and get started. It's after 10:30.
no, I think I'm
We
fine
have
now
one
that I know where
panelist who might
everyone's
be
going to
coming in
be.
late. Catherine, you want to sit over here?
So Wesley joined me last night and he asked his parents. He wanted to come. They had the caravans. You know who they are?
Too much sun on that.
They wrote, we should have a
It's. I have a backlight,
And
but
I
it
was
is a
surprised.
little
They
bit of
said,
a
"Well, I
problem.
made this too." His father had the
Kind of figured why the hell.
Well, we're just delighted to have Kitty and Jane and Marshall and Marijuana and Catherine here today to meet with the Mayor Miners. I think first of all I wanted to introduce the panel, but I thought you might want to meet the children that are here today. We have Elizabeth Miller here and Jessica Slavic, Jennifer Rubin, Amy Clay, Katie Moore, Audie Bloom, Matthew Branch, Elizabeth Clay. That looks like it. And Catherine is going to be on the panel today. The thought we had for today was to look at Baba kind of across the generations. We have people on the panel today who met Baba in their lives and in their hearts over a great span of years. Kitty, of course, has been with Baba for almost 60 years. She met Baba in England and spent many years with him in India. Jane met Baba a number of times and communicated with him by letters. About 40 years, I guess, she's been with Baba. Catherine is one of us who grew up in a Baba family from day one. Marshall is came to Baba in the 60s before Baba dropped his body, but never had the opportunity to meet him. And Marilyn, of course, is Baba's great nephew, right? Baba performed the wedding ceremony of his parents, and his father is Baba's brother's son. So he's had a life with Baba since birth. And I guess we'd like to open up with, if I could start with you, Kitty, maybe briefly, maybe a little bit about your relationship with Baba through the years.
When I met him,
That would be,
how I came to meet him.
that would be wonderful. Whatever you'd like to share.
I have to take you right back to 1931. All the way back to that. It was in 1931, and I think probably September the 24th, if I remember right, that I was told that there was a friend coming from India, and my brother was very anxious that he should meet. He was a Meher Baba, follower of Meher Baba, and that he should meet somebody in the group in London who hadn't met Baba before. And he brought, Melody Starr brought this gentleman, Meher Baba, to my parents' home, and that is how we met. But we met a little time before then, because I had gone to this railway station to meet Baba, and it was very interesting. On the same boat that Baba came over to the West for the first time was also Gandhi on the boat. And I was at the big railway terminus in London, and there were a lot of people at the platform, and I didn't understand because I thought I was just going to meet just one person there. And I asked the porter, and I said, well, what are all these people here on the big platform? Oh, he said, don't you know, he said, that Gandhi has just arrived from India, and all these people have come to visit him and to invite him to their houses. So at the same time I had met Baba, I also was in touch with Gandhi and found they had both come over on the same boat so that they should arrive in London. They were very anxious to have home rule in India, and at that time we were ruling India, which they didn't care very much to have a ruler from outside, from England. So that, there was a great crowd at the railway station to meet Gandhi when he came. And and then I was introduced to Meher Baba, and he came to my home where I lived, and I didn't really know that he was a spiritual teacher at all, but I knew that he was rather fond of music. So not knowing what kind of music they had in India, I didn't know at that time. We thought we might have Paul Robeson, who sang a great deal of spirituals. So we thought we would sit all around the floor and we have a musical group together. And I remember after we had the little concert was over, we were just going off to bed, but he was staying in our house, and then the first thing that he asked me, Baba, was, are you happy? And I said, yes, we thought we were happy. And he said, well, no, don't worry, be happy, and I will help you in any way I can. And so that was my very first meeting, and I know that same night when I went to bed, I said to my niece who was staying in our house from Canada, I said that, isn't he wonderful? I said, I don't think I've ever met anybody quite like he was. To which my young niece from Canada, she was only about 14, also met Baba at the same time. And that was my first touch. And I do remember the next morning he was leaving to go down to the retreat they had just outside of London. And as he was leaving in the car, and I was staying in London where I was living, when I was teaching there, and Baba turned and said, is there anything you want? Because I had no time, I was in the car, cranking up the car to go down to the retreat just outside of London, and I had no time to think. But two things came into my mind, sort of rather without my really thinking about it. And I said, yes, I would like to have greater opportunities for service and an increased capacity for love, how to love. And Baba just answered and said, you will have both fairly soon. And then he went off down to the street, and then I returned home. So that was when I said my life took on a little turning point, when after Baba had said that. And I started, Baba came back and forth from India, and then finally asked if I'd go to India, so I went for 2 or 3 months and saw what life was like in India, at the retreat there. We had, just like you have a retreat here, there was one in India, and I would go backwards and forwards to India and hear what Baba's message was, and it was always the same thing, don't worry, be happy, and I will help you. He was always saying, meaning, what are you thinking of? And if you said that you were thinking of Baba, he was very pleased. Now, I don't know if there's anything else that I can think without it. You can ask any questions that you like, and I'll do my best to answer them. So that is, how many years have I been? Your arithmetic is better than mine.
16.
But it's something like 60 years. Isn't that a long time? And I'm still going backwards and forwards to India whenever I can. And I've always felt the same ever since I met Baba on that first day. And I remember that same evening that I had my young niece from Canada staying with us. And she said, I woke her up in the middle of the night, and she said, what do you want? And I said, oh, isn't he wonderful, isn't he beautiful? Meaning my Baba, when I first met him. And I never changed that, my idea of that. Now, any questions? Yes? people like to know.
Any questions from you all for Kitty?
Well, perhaps I better let you know, I stayed in India after this time. I thought I was only going for a week or so or something, but it ended spending 18 years there. A long time, isn't it? And then I come back here, and as you know, I've been here now since 1951. And it's lovely to see you all, and so many you young ones. When I was here in 1951, there were very few who came, and very few children, or young boys and girls. Oh, look, they're pouring in. Oh, where do they all come from? Unfamiliar faces. Wonderful. This is a panel, or is this questions and answers, isn't it?
Well, a
So
little
that I think
both.
Jane, you know Jane, it's been many, many years, so between us, we'll answer the questions between us. And then Marshall's here, and there's Manuel, Catherine, you have a right mind.
Well, Jane, would you like to give us a little bit of your first meeting with Father?
Well, let's see, a little hard to distill. Kitty does it so beautifully. To be brief, the children and I are very blessed to be here, be in Myrtle Beach, the time me Baba came. I was producing theatre here, and we were here. I think those stories are just too long, and they get, I digress, and got a lot of visual images that I like to share with you, and then it gets too lengthy. So in sum, we heard of him for about a year, did not know his divinity, but were drawn inwardly, and there were many wonderful things that led up to the important transforming moment of meeting the beloved in the lagoon cabin at the center. I think the thing I'd like to sum up about that prior experience is that there were two things. Sometimes, we're veiled, I suppose we all are. Children and young people always recognize, Narina said that, they always recognize Meher Baba more easily. We were older and were veiled, and I was indeed veiled. But two things Meher Baba used to hold me until he came, and there were, Baba is right, there were beautiful cables and letters that fortunately in my ignorance I did not destroy, but kept. Two things held me. My children have to speak for themselves. One is the picture of Meher Baba with the lamb. You've seen that? You probably all have it. It's very beautiful. And Elizabeth took it on the bus tour. Rano took the one where Meher Baba's turned. Elizabeth took the one where I was facing straight on, 1938. Every time I tried to turn from that picture, as I've been honest with you to say, I was veiled. I had a limited background in religion, rather narrow one. I couldn't turn away from that. I'd have to turn back and look, and I used to sort of say inside, oh, that's the way I always thought he would look. And then I'd turn away again. We had privilege of meeting Elizabeth and Kitty. In fact, it was my theatre the day, the evening after Narina passed away, and that's a long and beautiful story. Elizabeth said she felt some recognition there. I have no memory of either meeting or the occasion. In any event, the other thing that held me were the lives of those two people, Elizabeth and Kitty. The fruit is of the tree, is it not? And it's so easy to talk, and all of us do a lot of talking. And it's so easy to argue and to read and to intellectualize. Meher Baba said it doesn't matter at all what we believe. It's how do we live our lives. And I saw Meher Baba's 3 words are, as you know, the whole essence of his ministry, his suffering, his advent. Baba said his love, purity, and selfless service. So I saw those 3, whatever those things are. I don't even like to say words because they're very deep. Those 3 expressions, those 3 vibrancies, those 3 important things, impossible things, being lived. before my eyes. And I hadn't experienced that. I was blessed to experience love through my children, and that I had had. That's a very beautiful love. But I'd never known this kind of love that was detached, that asked nothing, was totally giving. I'd never seen people exhibit selfless service to that degree, not being even capable of thinking of themselves, having it almost automatic to think of the other person. The purity goes without saying. So in sum, I saw that and experienced it. Very different to read about something and to experience it. And so that held me, at least. As I say, the children can speak. Indeed, they recognized him immediately. I think that's very beautiful. As Baba said, the simplicity of truth. Truth is very simple, and that is the only way it can be expressed. They recognized him. And Charles' expression, something I looked in, they said to go there, and the lagoon captain and I saw Jesus, and I went, and I hugged his neck, and he embraced me. Wendy's at my theatre going right into his arms. John had a different experience. No time for that to say. They recognized him. I did not. And it was on the fourth day, on May 22nd, Meher Baba gave me the glimpse of his divinity. That will remain forever and ever. And spoke to me in the inner voice, and that's the story of another day. But our meeting was to answer Polly's question. You're welcome to come in. To answer Polly's question, our meeting was on the center, and our links to Elizabeth and Kitty. And of course, Meher Baba did confirm that love in relationship. Indeed, he said, if Elizabeth embracing us, each one, and I was amazed, because when he embraced you, you felt not that, physical touch, like when we hug each other, that strength and sort of somebody holding. It was like being enveloped in a cloud of velvet and love and joy beyond any description. And there was no physical sensation whatsoever. So I was quite amazed about the third day when Meher Baba called us, and after he had me read something that Baba had called me to read for him, he called each one, and there's this frail person suffering, hardly able to walk, undergoing all the suffering for us, his body broken, and yet he took one huge woman and another, myself, fairly big also person, in each elbow and each arm, like this. It was like a vice. I felt I was being held in an iron vice. And he then said to spiritual twin, and he gave that deep link. So my blessing has been to have those 35, 36 years of observing, experiencing, apprenticing, training, watching, loving, of two great disciples of Meher Baba. So you see, our family's been very blessed. And I'd like Catherine Mira to say something before closing remarks. I did tell Barbara and try to reach Polly that I didn't feel I had much to contribute this morning because of Barbara's words. Because with love, only Meher Baba can teach us to love. We don't even love each other. We don't know how to receive or give love. But in loving God, he says, we can come to know how to love each other. So I couldn't have any comment on how to love. And purity, that's something that's a gift of grace that we just strive for. But that word service, I do know a little bit about from experience, from aspiration, and from direct communication with Meher Baba. The last book that he signed, according to Mani, was Meher Baba's Love. You have seen that book? You have it, dear Jennifer, I know you have it in Arena. It's long ago, so you may have to look back. There have been so many lovely things since. They're poems written by children. Adi Shiffrin did the book, and they're beautiful pictures. And it's called Meher Baba's Love, and it was for children. Anyway, Meher Baba signed it with his own hand. And that's the last book that he signed, and it was for Happy Club. And so, but only if there's time, and only if you're interested. I couldn't resist the opportunity to do a little recruiting today. Only if you're interested, and if there is time, then I would tell you I've put down my remarks so I wouldn't talk too much and digress I would tell you a little bit about how Baba blessed the Happy Club, how the seeds fructified, and what the high school age young people did as an outgrowth of that, and then their adult, because I think that maybe that's something that we need to concern ourselves with today. There are 46,000 children dying each day. That isn't a myth, it's a statistic. It's a truth. And, we sort of feel, well, it's all too much for me, the drugs and the crime and the violence and the death. What can I do? It's just too much. I also am feeling that. My comment on that in closing my remarks is to say that Mother Teresa picked up one filthy, ugly, man. He's dying, and he looked very terrible, and he was lying in the gutter. And so she felt for him, and so she picked him up. She held him in her arms, and she gave him love so he could die in love. And she transformed the world with that one act. So that's what Meher Baba anyways been telling me recently, and what I don't even know how to meditate. So I won't say my meditation, perhaps in thought, perhaps in prayer, perhaps in real desperation, as I see the children dying. And the thought, Amanda and I talked about that before, the thought that he gave me, the truth that he gave me, the inspiration that he gave me is, the individual action is very important. Even if it's foolish or weak, what I do, or awkward or flawed, God can take it and make something very big of it. And so if there's time, and perhaps that would be for another meeting, I do want, when Charles comes down, for him to talk to you about how that service council was founded. Not because he did it, he was involved in it, but it was the first biracial one in the whole Southeast. And Baba blessed it. The cable said, blessed is my community service council. You remember, Kitty, the first work they did was Bessie's roof. Bessie Graham met Baba, was Kitty and Elizabeth's friend and family and housekeeper for 40 years. And that's the first thing they did, was to repair. It was just a little thing, but the roof was leaking. And then they carved out a park and so on. So if you are interested today or another time, that area of your lives and of my life is one that I feel most comfortable about sharing.
I think in terms of different perspectives across the generation of Baba, maybe we could go to Marshall next, since he also came to know Baba after having lived a good number of years not knowing of Baba. And I think there is a difference in that meeting of Baba and the life of these others who kind of were born into Baba family and obviously had met Baba before. So Marshall, could you share a little bit with us?
Sure. I came along in a special time, I think, with Baba. Coming to the center in 1966, Baba was in India, in the body, and yet, as it would work out, I didn't have the opportunity to meet him in the body until the 69 Darshan, which was the time, and then that came just after Baba had dropped the body. As I sit here, what I was remembering was a time in the Green Cottage over there, in what was then a book room. And I was with Kitty, and this room was full of pamphlets. And we were getting pamphlets in to mail out, and she reached in her purse and pulled out a letter and said, "Here, you might be interested in reading this." And in the middle of the letter, which was from Mani, was a sentence, and it said, Baba says to tell Marshall that he is with him. And that was the sole written communication that I ever had with their father. And my life over the last almost 25 years has been just that, of experiencing Baba being with me. Always. And that internal life and internal connection growing and changing and getting better. And I believe that that's the experience that we all have of coming to see him and know him and feel him in the heart as one's real self, which is who he is. And that's what I would share with anyone here today. With all of us, how fortunate we are, what an extraordinary gift it is to have that contact with their Baba, because that coming to find God in oneself is apparently what life is about. And we all have that opportunity to live that life with him and for him. Thank you.
Marilyn, would you like to, do you have anything you'd like to share within your relationship and life with Baba? And maybe some people on the panel could help lead the discussion too. You were born into a Baba family. When did you first become aware of Baba in your life?
Well, I mean, I was basically born in a very Baba family, and staying at me like a Baba everywhere. As a kid, I never thought of anything, never questioned the fact whether Baba was God or not. You're a kid, you just fool around. And especially my dad used to be very particular about keeping contact with Baba, not just being a kid in a Baba household, but actually saying your prayers every evening in front of Baba's picture. Or if anytime anybody was sick in the house, Dad would say, well, have you prayed to Baba today? To make your mom better and stuff like that. So, but that was all fine until I was about 15. And I started thinking, that's when it first occurred to me, I actually questioned this Baba God. Just because I've been born into the family and just because everybody says, Baba is God, how do I know? There's some things you don't question. The earth is round. How do you know? Well, it's round. But this thing I really questioned when I was about 15 years old. I had a long discussion with myself, asking myself, how do you know? Just because you're a Baba kid and your parents are Baba lovers, you never met Baba. You've never had any special experience that all these Baba lovers have that brings them close to Baba. So how do you know that Baba is God? And, nothing happened, no miracle occurred. Nothing happened to prove to me that Baba is God. It just, I just accepted it somehow. I knew inside me that, Baba, I knew inside, I don't know why, I knew inside me that he is who I think he is. And I was expecting some kind of, revelation or something spiritual. I never even used to dream about that. I never had a single Baba dream. All these Babas narrate strange and wonderful dreams about Baba, and which Baba came in dreams and stuff. I never even had any experience like that. But, 15, 16, 17 years old, finally I just accepted him as God. And at that age I found myself very, very close to Baba suddenly, accepting him as my Baba, very personal with God. So about that age. And then a lot of people ask me, what's it like growing up as a Baba lover and going to school and kids asking you questions about you being a Baba lover and stuff like that. And well, India is it's full of different religions, and I've never really had any problems at school because of all the religions all the kids accept. Meher Baba is just another religion, and there's a lot of respect for religion there. So I never really had any problems in school. Kids would ask me sometimes because I used to wear Baba locket, who is that? So I would try to hide it more or less. I said, oh, it's just, just somebody, it's, nothing, no big deal. It's just some saint that we worship, because that time I was a kid and I was embarrassed about it. But I never really had any such problems as that. What else?
Well, Catherine, maybe you can relate a little bit to some of what Marilyn said, growing up in a Baba family and going to school with people who don't know much about Baba. Can you share some of your feelings about Baba?
I really don't know what this is.
Have you felt your relationship with Baba changing as you've been getting older?
No, not really. I think that I've always felt really close to Baba all my life. I've, especially in India and at the Southeast Gathering, sometimes at the center, but I've always been around the center. So I've always felt close to Baba. I don't think I've even ever questioned him as not being God. I've just always accepted.
So you feel you have a personal connection with him. It's not just something that the family does and the community around you does.
Basically, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Marlena came in too. Not to put you on the spot, Marlena and Catherine.
Marlena is also one of our panelists. Here,
She
you
and
get in the
Catherine were
panel
sharing
chair.
the spot on the panel of
Maybe you can
the
share
youngest generation.
some of your feelings too about.
I guess I never really thought about, our parents had to depart from what they were to, go to Baba, and we were just born into Baba families, and I never questioned Baba, I always just assumed that he was God, because, I don't know, and then I really believed that he was, and I don't know, I was just always really happy that I was just born into a Baba family, having to decide, in the middle of my life what to do. I never, someone I know has, someone my age has doubted Baba as being God, and I guess, I never really thought that anyone who was born into a Baba family would do that, but I guess if your family doesn't really give you a background of Baba, I don't know.
Any other thoughts and feelings from the panel?
Yeah. Years ago, I was with Molly in India, and she was 9 years old and was having a problem in her school. She was at the Lutheran school across the road and was the single Baba lover in the school. So that we were in India, and one day Molly posed the question to Mani that her situation, as she put it, was that she was the only Baba lover in the school and the rest were Jesus lovers, and how should she handle this? So Mani's response was that Molly should do exactly what Monty did in the same situation when she was a child in the convent school that she went to. She said she simply kept a picture of Baba on her desk, and that anytime someone would come by and say, "Who's that?" Monty's reply was, "That's my brother. He's God." So Molly kept the picture on her desk. "That's my brother. He's God." But it is true that, I think all of us experience, I've experienced what Marwan's talking about, Jane and Kitty in their own, each in their own experience of that coming to Baba for yourself, not because one's friends or family or children or parents or whatever, but each of us meets him one-to-one, no matter what your age. That's been my experience. Keep meeting, continue to meet. It's not a one-time event. It carries on. One of the wonderful things for me living here at the center has been to have that opportunity to see Kitty, and Elizabeth, and Margaret Krask, and Jane continue to have that meeting, and to see that as a person, to look and see that others who have been with Baba so much longer and continue to grow and to change, and that is a very wonderful thing. To see Baba continue to work on and draw his lovers closer, always. So, to both of you, thank you.
I was liking that point you made, Marshall, about how coming to a personal relationship with Baba, it does have a beginning, but it's almost like it doesn't have an end. It comes over and over again. As Marwan described when he was 15, 16, 17, reaching that place in himself where he felt his own solid connection with Baba. But then, as the years go by, somehow it happens over and over again, and we all continue to grow. I was thinking about that in terms of living a life with Baba, and it has always amazed me, Jane, for one, how much the Baba's life here at the center has continued to grow and affect the community around us, and so many more lovers from all over the world coming here. I wanted to ask you, because all these young people have so much connection with the outside world, so to speak. You've been kind of in that position of and Marshall, you too, of connecting the center and Baba's life here with the life of Myrtle Beach or South Carolina. And how does that, I know you feel that continuing to change. I just wondered if you had thoughts about that. You said something about service, and I feel that's a large way that we kind of relate our life with Baba. We hook it into the outside world through what we do at school and what we do in our jobs.
Well, that's a wonderful question. I was trying to think, as you were speaking, how trying to empathize with young people, what response I might give that might be interesting or meaningful to you, because when there's such a difference in age, now that I'm so much older, I used to have more contact, and when you were younger, and I could, every single one of you, and I could just pick you up and cuddle and kiss and carry on. and now that you're young people. So how to say something that's meaningful to you, because actually I learn more from you than you could learn from me. I think we're all saying the same thing in a different way, because Barbara said it's how we live our life, as we said before, and that I see in your lives, in the little contact I'm able to have with you, I see a beauty and an honesty and a clarity that goes far beyond books or what, not to take away from church affiliation. I'm glad Wesley's here, because I knew his dad, Dr. Charleston, he was an apprentice, and he was a young boy in my theatre, and I loved him. And now this huge man with a family and a distinguished career, and now Wesley comes to the center. So I hope that, and we share on a one-to-one basis, which I'm better at than in a group, I hope that we could talk about some of these things. But I think what I'm really trying to say is that you're going forth into middle school or high school or Darling Nadine or wherever. Now I hear Norina wants to go off to school, Becca's off to school. I used to hold these children in my lap, and beautiful Elizabeth, when she was little. Wherever you go, it seems to me, I mean, I know it, then in Luke, and you take Mayor Barbara's love with you, and I think it is good. I'm not correcting you, but since you've asked me to share, I think it is good to say Mayor Barbara, not Barbara. I think there would be better understanding in your friends and community if you did that, and Barbara himself said it. Remember, Kitty, when the sculpture came of Elizabeth and they put disciple of Barbara, Barbara sent a cable, say, may her Barbara. And he always told us that. He said, there are many Barbas. It means father, baby, loved one. There's only one may her Barbara. His name is compassion. That comes from the Latin, to suffer with. It doesn't mean, I feel sorry for you, so poor, you don't have any shoes or food, so I'll give you something. No, it means to suffer with, to enter into the suffering. And that's what Barbara did. And he wanted us to say Mayor Barbara. He also liked us to say, if we have to define him, which I don't think we really have to a lot of times, God in human form. But never mind my comments in that. In terms of Barbara's question, I feel with all my heart that when Barbara said we're his groundwires, that his words are truth. Just our very being, when you go forth into school with, as I say, your sweetness, your kindness, your honesty, and I think of Molly and her leadership in the Mayor Manners, but I don't like to single out people, but you are leaders. I mean, you're tomorrow, we won't be here. Mayor Barbara said a place of pilgrimage for all time. He said it's the Lord's home. So it'll be you that'll be taking care of it. So I really believe that just that quiet thing inside of taking his love and the way we act towards others and perform in our lives and at school is probably the very best and highest thing we could do. What good is it to talk to people? You and I don't like to be talked at. We respect, say, Jehovah's Witness. They come to our door. I have a lovely black lady who comes to me for 3 years. Quite frankly, I enjoy the exchange because she's a superior person, but she's unusual. Sometimes there's a lot of proselytizing. Mayor Barbara said that he didn't want that. I mean, flat out. He just said no. And he also said, in terms of a small community, there are only 17,000 people here, and they know every time you go to the drugstore, and they know who you went to the drugstore with. And Barbara said, never disturb anyone's religion. So in terms of the relationship of Mayor Barbara and the historical Jesus, perhaps we think now, and more people are, if you read Matthew Fox, he's talking about the cosmic Christ, and people are listening. He's like a prophet crying out in the wake of Mayor Barbara saying, it's all Christ consciousness. So if we know in our hearts it's one and the same, then what need do we label or protect or this, as Mani said, we just keep it in our hearts and be sure we live our lives. In terms of service, again, that's a really important area, I think, to examine yourselves. This is a hard statement, but it was what prompted my wanting to speak about service. I just got it in the mail yesterday from Atlanta, and they send a newsletter, and it said, Mayor Barbara's quote, working for and serving others and undergoing much strain is good. It wipes out past karma, and even the new sanskaras which are created are very, very faint. It is of tremendous spiritual benefit to work, to serve, and to undergo hardships for others. Sitting idle, always eating well-cooked, well-served meals, being waited on, without lifting a finger to help others is very bad spiritually. It creates very deep sanskaras which are very difficult to wipe away. So I'm going to say more, but just to comment, instead of being, as I said to Marshall yesterday, I'd like to speak about service, but I don't want to be negative. So let me say some positive, quick things. That when Sandy and Polly, now of course Barbara's coming in, things are being reorganized, the minor programs being strengthened. When they had the program last year, they, not they, and I don't know who the others were, I don't see Amanda here, but there were others. Anyway, they took 3 families, or was it 4 families? 4 families at Christmas, and that seems just like a little thing. It's not a little thing. It's the only Christmas the families had. And the children, the young people, I say children because there were some younger ones involved, but you young people, you have the joy, and it really is a joy. If you look back, even in your short lives, when was the happiest time you knew? And it wasn't the party, or winning the tennis game, or the great new skirt, even though we love those things, and Barbara likes us to have them, he loves the ballads and all, but that really didn't make us happy. In fact, we had a kind of a down afterwards. The only thing that really makes us happy, if we really, really look at it honestly, is that time I did something, unexpected from others. She wasn't expecting it, and I just tidied the room, or I just stayed home from doing what I wanted to, kept the younger child, or I helped a friend at school, or whatever. But when you did that deed, however small, that you were really felt good about, and you felt happy. So I think there's a joy, and I just want to really, instead of being negative and saying what you aren't doing, I feel we aren't doing enough. When I see the community I live in, I see the degradation in Race Power, when I bring the Happy Club children up, and Mary Jane is expecting at 12, and the drugs are there. Canal Street is so much better. And thanks to your parents, and Denny, Barbara, Lyda, all of them, Mary McBride, they found their life's work. They found that I could name one after the other, many more even than you knew, and Dale, all of your parents. They found their life's work in volunteer work. And so whatever form it takes, and I wrote down, and then I really won't say more, but I thought I'd write down the opportunities that there are. So I've told you, Robert blessed the Happy Club directly, put his hand on Bessie's grandchild, you see, and that's 34 years ago. He put his hand right there, and then later, Wendy's 13 began, and it wasn't just those who were consciously aware of me about. Louise Trask, whom you know, Fred Trask's wife, remember, she knew about me about it, but she wasn't with him directly. It was people like her and Karen Joyner inspired the young people. Liz Lee, they came, remember Kitty, from the high school here on Saturdays. They were permitted to do so, welcome to help with Happy Club. In fact, they were the staff. I didn't do anything. Elizabeth and I just drove the car. So they were exposed, Shirley Springs, Prince Bowen, they were exposed to the beauty of the center, the example of love and all of that, and it influenced their lives a lot. So I'm just saying that Happy Club, and I must come to the point, that Happy Club is every Saturday. We only have one helper now. We burn out people very quickly because we're very noisy and obstreperous, and people try to reform us, and we refuse to be reformed, so we're not the most popular people, but we have a lot of fun, and we're very creative, and Jeff is the Pied Piper. But right now, so many have had to pull back because they have done it for so many. Anyway, it's only an hour. If you want to help, it's kind of fun, and it's only an hour. Elizabeth and Catherine Mira came to help us at Halloween, and I was shocked to see even the young ones, how they were able to do volleyball. I didn't know that. I thought you had to be very tall and grown up. I haven't been able to go up there recently. So there's a simple thing, but it means an awful lot to the kids who have no recreation center and no facilities in the place where they live. Anyway, it's only an hour because we do the food and the cleanup and all that. So it's just 1:30 to 2:30. This is the 26th year of Happy Club, 3 generations. And we would really love to have you either one-on-one or as a mere amount of thing of saying we might give you one Saturday a month. These are only suggestions. At Thanksgiving, the Lees will come, the family, and Barbara found them at Thanksgiving. They were dying, 3 of the children, they were 16, and they were down below Waka Wacha Marina, and that's 24 years ago. So Barbara blessed them, and he always wanted them to come Thanksgiving. So at Thanksgiving, and we have the food, everybody gives us, there's enough left over from the big center Thanksgiving that we have the food. So, but there you see someone to set it up, put the paper plates there, someone to come and serve the Jews, but most of all, to show the love. And they sing last night, this young man's father had the most famous people in the world of the civil rights movement that I grew up with, Guy and Candy Caravan. Did you ever hear We Shall Overcome? See, you're so young, but you've heard it, thank goodness. We Shall Overcome, Eyes on the Prize, well, they wrote them, Guy and Candy Caravan. So they were there last night at the university, and I was thinking about you, because I was thinking what leadership we have, what inspiration, what tremendous music and act, and just as when Vietnam, you had a cause, you had something to, well, everybody's a little laid back now. Not too many causes around. Everybody's a little apathetic. But my mind jumped to the singing because after the meal at Thanksgiving, the Lees sing. You won't find the Gula songs, the gospel, anywhere else in this part of the country except in that family because they're all dying out. And they are fantastic. You would love to hear them sing. And then at Christmas, as I say, they're the families. And of course, there's the Christmas party. Anyway, those are just opportunities. That's much too long a response. But as I haven't been visited with the Mayor Manors since your inception, it was Charles's inspiration. And of course, Marshall, the rest of the board agreed that it was extremely important. And we tried hard, renovating the rec room, giving you facilities, in other words. We want you to come to the center, kiddies especially. You remember saying how especially eager you were to provide facilities and programming for the children.
Oh, yes, years ago.
Kiddies leadership, and then, so we're really happy about you. We also want you to be able to tell us what else you need. Malcolm is trying now and lead to at the basketball court. We can put down the coquina and the new net and all that, and let us know what you need. And also remember that we love you and we love the work you do. And so these mentions of children who love God just as much as you, just as much as I do, maybe more, but who live in utter degradation, that if we ignore them, if we turn our head from suffering that's right on our doorstep, then I believe that's not pleasing to Barbara. I think we must take, whether it's forming a high school group, whether it's helping, I don't give you any specific ideas, but I think it's good for us to have an awareness of it.
Well, we're starting to run out of time. What I'd like to do is see if any of you have questions or comments for anyone on the panel in terms of anything that's been said or thoughts and feelings you may have about Baba.
Well, this is just to anyone. Lately I've had to explain to a lot of people that weren't Baba lovers, about Baba, and they asked me, well, is Baba your religion? And I never really thought that whether it was a religion or not, because, my mom never really, her parents were Jewish, and she wasn't really Jewish, and she just was a Baba lover, we never really celebrated any certain religion except for Baba, and so I don't know. I mean, do you consider Baba a religion or just a belief of God? Anyone?
It's asking if we take a little bit confused or interested in the matter of if this Meher Baba had to be a religion. Baba, I think, said it's not a religion. She's asked, would you tell about that, what Baba said? All of them are equally beautiful.
Baba's always said that all religions are really one, because God is one, and all religions worship one God. There may be a variety of expressions of that work. We all work in a different way, but we don't work for ourselves, but we work for that which is the greatest of all beings, and that's God Himself.
Your question, Marlena, was when somebody comes up to you and says, well, is he your religion?
I
In
didn't
all
know
honesty,
really.
do you say yes or do you say
Right,
no?
I didn't really know what to say. I was like, well, you know.
I guess you could say, Kitty, don't you think she could say, in honesty, not exactly? That weasel out the back door.
Maybe you could just say how you feel about it, because you have beautiful feelings about Meher Baba. Maybe you could just say, I love him.
Yeah.
Does it have to be labeled and defined?
Yeah.
3 out of 4 of the wars today in the name of Muhammad or Christ, people killing each other and destroying each other for labels and names. Maybe we've had enough of names and labels.
It seems sometimes when you define a religion, what it does is it excludes other
Everything
points of
else,
view.
exactly.
And that's one thing that always appealed to me about Baba from the beginning is that, you know, he is in and all the religions, and there is no separation.
Well, Baba's always said that love holds the key. And that's the most important in all religions, to find what love is all about.
No.
And I think it's very nice that you all come together here and have your opportunity to talk about these things, which means right down to the basis of all religions. This is to learn how to love. And that means to give, doesn't it? To give in service of any kind that interests you.
I have a small request, if I may. I didn't know you had a time limit. I wouldn't have talked so
Well,
much.
we don't.
I have one request.
Marshall has a plan to catch.
That's important. Well, I only wanted to say that after Christmas, because you'll be very busy, I'm sure, with Christmas plans, and after I return, hopefully, I get off from India, I have a request that I would like very much to have the opportunity to turn the tables. I hope that you would invite Kitty, me, and Meherwan, and Marshall, and Darwin, and turn the tables. I'd like to be very much sitting in the audience, and I would like for you to be up there because we would learn so much. I mean it, I'm perfectly serious. To tell us your thoughts, and I know it's not easy in front of a lot of people, but sometimes it helps us to articulate our thoughts. I know that was the highlight of the California Sahavas for me, was what I received from the young people who sat on the stage and talked to us about, and Marlene really is responsible for the Meher Manor. She put a notice up, did you know that? She put a notice up one day in the kitchen. Why don't you have something here for the young people? She was the catalyst. But anyway, I hope that you could do that sometime. If you do, I would like to come.
Can we do that after Christmas?
Great idea.
Can we make a date?
Yeah.
Huh? Christmas cookies, leftover Christmas cookies, milk and questions and everything.
Anybody can come and ask. all
Anybody
these
can
guys
come,
any
but
question
everyone
they
that's
want.
here has to come.
We'd like
All
to
right?
ask her a question. Elizabeth has a lot to tell.
There are no questions that come up today. So many of you have any questions.
Any other?
Jennifer, don't you have a question when you're pretty young? No question. Jennifer writes prayers, beautiful prayers.
Now, you were asking about religion, and it's Baba said that the same God is behind all of the religions. And of course, the thing is that in that contact with Meher Baba, what's happened is that each of us has gone beyond religion, beyond. It has the opportunity to not have to have the ceremonies and the rituals and so forth, but to have that direct contact, that one-to-one contact. And that question, who is Meher Baba, seems to be answered always, that ongoing answer that Baba gives through time, every day, revealing himself again and again in the people, in the work, in the life, in one's own life, in the things around, exactly the things that Jane has spoken to, and the people who come here, and all of it. Baba shows up in every way, so that it's true. It's a different answer all the time, but the love.
Can I make a comment? I'm just a photographer. But this question of, is Baba your religion? I've been asked that so many different times, and I've never known how to answer that. And usually I say, because it's very easy, I was brought up in an Episcopalian family, no, my religion is, I'm an Episcopalian. That usually satisfies them. It doesn't answer their question, though, because really they want to know something about Baba. They want a label. And I found that the mind wants to tell them something in about a second and a half or 5 seconds to sum it all up. But it's really impossible. And it's not our job to sum it up. Because Baba one time said, Mansari told me this, that he was sitting with them out by the Upper Mehrabad, and he said, you see, he says, I don't need any of you to do my work. This chair, and he tapped on a chair, he says, I could do my work through this chair. So don't think that you're obliging me by doing my work. I give you the opportunity to share my love. So really I think of it in terms of, it doesn't matter if the person doesn't understand, because Baba made me understand. It's his job to contact them, not my job to somehow referee or, no, you don't have it right, or this or that. So I just leave it to him, because I figure if Baba got through to me, he certainly is going to be capable to get through to whoever it is. I'm not specially endowed with some unique insight. And so one thinks that they just don't understand. But Baba knows how to make them understand, and they're understanding exactly what he wants them to understand. So sometimes you can just leave them with a question. It's not imperative to answer to answer directly. It might be enough just to say that Baba says all religions are one. And they may wonder about that for 10 years.
Yes, what you say is so true. As Baba kept emphasizing, didn't he, to hear my name is enough. So we always try to say his name.
It's just love and service. If you love, then you also want to serve and help in any way you can. And life's so full every day of so many opportunities where you can help each other. Small ways and in big ways, it doesn't matter.
Another thing is, it's often really difficult to answer when someone, like, if someone's in my room and asks about pictures or something, and they're like, who is that? And then you're like, that's Avatar Meher Baba. Well, who's that? And you're like, and the easiest way is to explain it, that really say, people are still really confused over, especially confused over. You're like, oh, well, that's God. And they're like, what? They're like really confused by that. And,
Yes, Elizabeth used to say, how can we even say know what God is. Papa wasn't so fond of saying, I'm God. I'm the ancient one.
Yeah.
I'm universal love. I'm in your heart. Why third people something they not only can't understand, but puts them off, and something we don't understand ourselves? What do you generally say to your friends, Wesley?
Well,
I know it's not easy for you in some ways.
and it's like, well, I mean, a lot of people say, like, if I'm wearing a pen of Baba or something, people will come up to me and say, oh, is that Frank Zappa? Yes! It's like, it's him too, I mean, you know.
That's all right.
And it's, well, you know, it's, usually I just say something like, well, he was a spiritual teacher or something, and,
Yes.
and then people,
Something they can sort of
yeah,
identify with. Baba said you must come to people's level when you're working with them, sharing or speaking. Why expect that, they can't know what they don't know? There was a time when you and I didn't know. It's so important to let them have their wonderful love for Christ, whatever they have, that's great, and not disturb it.
one thing
Be
that's
sure
really-
what we're doing.
One thing that was really interesting is I had a picture in my room, and this friend of mine said, "It's kind of a Christ-like picture there." I was like, "Well, yes, it is, isn't it?" And it was really
He was able to feel a little more. It's not easy. That's why I think it might be of interest to you when people are down, not just my children, but they were in high school here as you are. It was not easy. Even in that time, it's probably more difficult now. I think it's nice to, have those people to share with you and how they met. We'll try to think of the others. There's Louise and Charles, Wendy, Charles. I know there are others that love me about in the school and how difficult the things, because then if you share the same problem, sometimes there can be ideas that are helpful, the experiences they had. It wasn't easy. As far as this Community Service Council, they wouldn't let them make the announcement over the loudspeaker. The principal forbade them. We were just going to say we're going to meet in the afternoon, this biracial group, service group. Oh no, he said, we're not going to make that announcement in this school. Not as long as I'm principal. But they didn't let it stop. I remember too, Wendy, now that I think of it, I remember her weeping one day, a lot. I remember that now. Just come back to me, Auntie. And she really couldn't stop. She just kept on and on. And it was something, I don't know what she was left out of, whether it was a dance or a clique or a social, I don't know, in high school. Because I just remember high school was a very painful time. I hated every minute of it, particularly junior high. But anyway, so I was empathizing with her. But anyhow, she just kept on crying, and they do this, and then she had this, and they have, and she was being, in whatever way, shut out, ostracized, I don't know. No need to go into detail, you get the picture. And she just kept on and on. And it was, I think it wasn't surface. I think it hurt. And I'm sure Charles felt it, but men express themselves a little differently. But I do remember her tears and her hurt. And something came to me, probably the only wise thing Teresa ever said or did, and it didn't come from me, it came from me about it, because I called on him and I said, please help me, because I don't know what to say and I don't know what to do. So I really called on God with all my heart, and I heard myself saying this. I asked Wendy this question. I said, Wendy, it was in high school, yes, in Myrtle Beach. I say, tell me, if you could trade places with Mary Sue, the one who was so popular and had all these dances and bows and honors, and she was with the in crowd and all. I said, you'd answer me honestly, if tomorrow you could trade places with Mary Sue and have all of those things and do it, would you do it? And she looked at me, and she was so young, because she graduated high school very young. She looked at me and she thought very seriously, and then she said, with a beautiful smile, she said, no, Mother. I wouldn't trade places with anyone in the world. Because, of course, she has the greatest treasure. She has Meher Baba's love, and he's the ancient one. And so she has everything. But she needed to think about that. Because sometimes it is hurtful. Do you experience any difficulty, Elizabeth, in school because of your relationship with Meher Baba, or do you just keep it like a sweet secret in your heart?
I just keep it.
Keep it. Baba said it is your secret. Our love for God. He even says it shouldn't be spoken. We shouldn't speak the word. He says it. Is it true, Kitty? Baba said we can't speak. And Aaron said that. He said, how am I going to speak to you about love? Love for God. It's something secret in your heart. But sometimes do they ask you, are you kind of forced to? No. You're lucky. You just don't have any problems. Kathy, Mira, do you? Ever?
Not really. Most of the people in my school know about Baba. And
That's wonderful.
I haven't come across many people that have judged me. Most people are real understanding.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's really
It shows how far things have come. Far things have come in a few years. She went is 38. What was she, 16? How much changes in a few years?
Any last question before we wrap it up? Comments? And then
I think it's terrific that all of you came, and it's so wonderful of all of you to make the effort to share yourselves with all of us. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
They all wanted to know something more about Meher Baba.
Excuse me, Kim?
They all wanted to know more about Meher Baba.
And more about you.
Then you'll have to schedule the next time with Kitty. An afternoon with Kitty. You can have a tea party, and then you can have the time of your life with Kitty. An afternoon with Kitty. You have so much material you can work with.
I had one brief announcement. Just if any of you senior marijuaners, that means high school age, not you, Matt. You're a minor marijuaner. I'm reminding you that we have that overnight scheduled next Sunday night.
Oh, Wesley, you wanted to know when that was?
It's next Sunday night, and we're going to meet on the center at 4. And I'll be calling most of you, and some of us will call around and talk to you about what to bring and a little more detail. But what I'd like you to do is try to give me a call. Let me know if you're coming for sure in the next day or so that I can let the gateway know exactly how many we'll have.
I think it's enough for school the next day.
There is no school on Monday. That's why we scheduled it for Sunday.
That was
Yeah,
a
you have-
concern with my mom. So.
No, you have next Monday off.
But,
thank you.
Yeah, well, thank all of you.
Thank you for inviting me.
How do they all come together? Are they all a group? Are they all a group or
January 8,
Easier to sit back here.
Roger Gregoire, Meher Center,
We were in the back.
1991.
He and Shane are coming.
I'm just taking this moment, and maybe you'd like to join me to quietly put your thoughts in the Master. This is never a very easy thing for me to do. And maybe by the end of all of this, you'll get a sense of why it's not so simple. I tend to, over the almost 40 years since meeting Mayor Baba, keep to myself and not been very much associated with the community, either in New York or Boston or here. And usually when I'm here, I pretty much stay alone, and I don't have very much to say because I really don't know what to say. And so this is a real break. You know, occasionally somebody would say, well, I heard that you met Mayor Baba, and I would tell them a little quickly, but this seems to have more stuff to it than in the past, and so I'm going to try and do it as best I can. And if I just reserve myself to the events leading up to it and what happened directly afterwards, it would not take very long. And as I've come to find out over the years, that often those events are the least important. But since most of you, if not all of you, have never had that experience, I'll try and do it as faithfully as I possibly can. And I want to tell you that I didn't always, and the reconstruction of it has been going on for a long time. I think there's a tendency for all of us, I know certainly for myself, to want to externalize things because somehow externalized events have more prominence and importance in our lives, as if we all remember when so-and-so got their first tooth, or the blackout in New York City, or something. I mean, we can talk about it. It has rhetorical quality. Oh, we remember this, or we remember that. And so it keeps us in the community, in some sense. It keeps us as common events. This is not going to be one of those stories. It's going to be far from it. I'll start with the person who brought me to Mayor Baba, who was my mother. My mother, who was born in the West Indies in the 19th century, and came to this country after the Second World War, after the First World War, and was married to my father, who is from Senegal, although it's not clear because he came also at that time when coming into this country as an African was very hard. And so I don't know very much about his entrance or his, in fact, origin, but I believe it was from Senegal. But he wasn't a part of our family for very much of my upbringing. My mother mostly raised me. She was a very spiritual woman and went through stages of being closely related to and somehow understanding of spiritual matters from both primitive sides, which is in the West Indies is called Obia, to Rosicrucians, to she was very interested in those issues which were not particularly obvious about the world, and a very religious woman as well. I mean, she wasn't a cult in that sense of the word. And she had a teacher in 1946 by the name of Bhagat Thin, who said to her, after having her as a disciple and a teacher for a long while, that the person you're looking for is Mayor Baba, and told her that there was a group of people in New York City who met regularly, and gave her the name. And my mother then became associated with the Mayor Baba group, and this was the year of the ending of the Second World War, which was 1946. And in that year, the third of her 4 children died of leukemia. It was my twin brother. It was in May of that year. And it was shortly after the, I guess, or about the time of the death of my brother, that she started reading about Mir Baba and looked forward to the time when she would eventually meet him. That's the preface to the story. And in 1952, she invited me to meet Mir Baba when he came to this country. I don't know whether to annotate this with recent insights from Darwin, but I'll just tell you the story quickly, and then you can answer questions, or I'll answer questions or whatever. Being the last of 4 children in New York City at that time, and a teenager, I was literally running wild. I was on the streets, as they say. Being on the streets in those days was a lot different than being on the streets today. It was not half as violent, nor as crazy, nor wild, but it was certainly part of the underworld, by any definition. And I don't want to go into the details of it, but I was certainly not leading what most would call, in that time or this, a respectable life for a young teenage boy in New York City, with the only child of a single parent mother who had no husband. And I really didn't want to go see whoever this person Mir Baba was, and I resisted strongly. And I didn't want to make my mother angry, but I used every possible ploy, and I said, I don't want to go see. I don't know anything about this. I see all these pictures around the house, but I don't think that's my stick. I don't want to do it. But she made it clear that this may be the last really big thing she asked of me, and I was going to go. And now I want you to remember that this is 40 years ago, so I can't give you the exact details of it, but I got a new suit, and I got very spiffed up, and we went down to see this person, Mir Baba. And I remember standing in a room in which the people were all around, and Baba was in front of the room on a low divan or dais or whatever, but it's not clear to me even now. I can't tell you exactly what that whole physical thing was like. It was just a group of people in the front and people on the side, and someone said to me, Baba will see you now. And I was in the very back of the room, and somehow I guess I had not really focused on which one of all these people was really Mir Baba. And as soon as they said go up there, I went not around the side, but right straight through to where Baba was sitting. And when I got there, I collapsed. And I began sobbing. And I couldn't breathe. And I thought I was dying. It was frightening. It was like drowning. And I don't know what else happened, except that I remember looking into Baba's face, and I thought it was going to be the last face I saw on this earth. I was very frightened. And I don't remember what happened, very much of what happened, if anything happened after that, except that 2 men picked me up and took me outside. And I got a little glass of water. And everybody was inside. And there I was, all alone outside. And I was absolutely petrified. I don't know what had happened to me. I was absolutely, first of all, I'd embarrassed my mother. The one thing she asked me to do for her, and I screwed it up. You could not, it's like going through your first Holy Communion and knocking all the wafers on the floor, And the shame and embarrassment and fear was overwhelming. And I don't know how long I was out there, except that after a while, the Mir Baba and Mandali started to come out. And it was a very little narrow hallway. And I was standing there, and I didn't want anyone to notice me. And when Baba passed me, he didn't notice me. And then I was absolutely devastated. And just at that moment, he turned around and looked at me. And at that moment, I cannot tell you what it felt like to be this person. It was absolutely the most wonderful moment of my whole life. I've tried for years to find just the right words to describe it, and I've never been able to do it. I can tell you that I felt absolutely no difference between the two of us. And then Baba left. And then my mother came up to me and she said, well, and I said to her, that's who I want to be. I didn't want to be like him. I didn't think he was, that's all I said. That's who I want to be. That's it. And you would think that after all the crap in my life and all the stuff that had been going on in an experience like that my life would instantly turn around and I would see the light and everything would be just fine. Or it would be struggle, but for 18 more years of my life, Mir Baba did not exist for me. I walked out of that place, and as it was, I had left home not long after that on my own Hajj, traveling around the country, getting into trouble, doing stuff, getting married, having children. Playing them as they lay. 18 years later, my mother's called to New York when my mother's dying. And in the 7 days in which she's in a coma and before she dies, I stay with her all the time on a little couch that they had outside of her room. And when she dies, I realize how important Mir Baba is to me, because I know that she has gone to join Mir Baba. I don't know how I can tell you, but I know that. So now I'm 36. And you think that this would also change my life. I keep going on with my life. I hardly ever tell anybody that I met Mir Baba. I hardly get into long theological or theosophic discussions with people about Mir Baba. I now have photographs of Mir Baba next to my bed, but very small ones. My wife, who had she knew about Mir Baba, but there was really no inclination to discuss Mir Baba. Now, 18 years later, so this is the third 18-year cycle in my life, and my marriage ends. It just ended. I wish there was a fanfare or, some kind of thing, just said, it's over. And she decided she wanted to live somewhere else. She went to live somewhere else. And everything that I want to do, and as I was saying to my friend as we were coming on the path, that I came back to the center. Because my life was once more shattered. It was just over. And Baba comes back into my life again. And everything I tried to do to continue my life just the way it had been fails. I have to close my business. I have to, in some ways, end my relationship with my children in the way the relationship we had before and form a new one. And we could not go on playing the father-child game anymore. And so I set them all free. I told them that there was no more time for us to play around like this anymore. And over the last 2 years, my life just has been reorganized in a very powerful way. Now, in some ways, even the fact that I'm here is some big change in my life. I have to not on the center because I like to come to the center, but that I'm willing to sit and talk about this. People ask me, say to me, and this is, I guess, the most important thing about all this. It must have been wonderful to have been in Mir Baba's presence. And I have to tell you that I always look at people who love Baba, having not been in his presence, with great admiration and with enormous envy. Because for me, it's been a long journey. And I only have that one moment in my life that lasted seconds. Or maybe, I don't know, but seconds, I suspect, to hold on to. It's like a toothpick. Compared to all the stuff that people experience all the time with Mir Baba. They talk to him, they see him, they dream about him. I never dream about Mir Baba. I never see Mir Baba. I have great conflicts in my heart about what I'm doing. I struggle all the time for the smallest little incremental movement. I never have, except that one moment, anything to say to anyone about it. I'm surprised I've taken so much of your time to tell you what happened so long ago under the most fleeting circumstances. I think that it's more wonderful to love Baba, having not ever seen him. But be that as it may, since we're all in the game together, every person I've ever spoken to who has had that kind of experience with Mir Baba has described it totally differently. In fact, some people, Jean Shaw said, everybody else saw my meeting Mir Baba as one thing, and I saw it as something totally different. No one agrees. Baba is absolutely personal to all of us. There is no collective experience of Mir Baba that I think is as important as the individual importance to each individual person. What their relationship with Mir Baba is precious, no matter how he comes to you. That's the most important. Not all the stuff, not the game, not the drama, not who was there, and what we ate, and what happened afterwards, and how my life turned around, what didn't turn around, or whether I walked out and wondered what the hell was that all about. So that's the whole story. And aren't you glad you came? If you have any questions, I'll try and answer them as honestly as possible.
How old were you when you had that experience?
18.
Oh, you were a young man.
Seems like just yesterday.
Do you know what it was you were afraid of when you were sobbing by the side?
It wasn't fear. I couldn't breathe. I was crying as if I was crying so hard, it was like a child who goes into spasm. You have children, you know, they get so furious about something, especially when they're infants, and they're breathing and wanting to at the same. And that was exactly what happened to me. I was just sobbing. I could not breathe.
Do you remember the emotion you felt that triggered that?
Well, emotions are the most ephemeral things to describe. I know that there's a list of words which outline emotional categories, but there are no emotions for that. I mean, I was overwhelmed. A lot of people have speculated about what could have happened, and I won't tell you what the speculation is because some of it is kind of, you know. But I can clearly tell you that it was, nothing has ever happened to me like that before or since. It was profound. When Baba walked by me, that feeling was as if I had met someone I had always known. And we looked at each other as if old, dear friends and lovers had encountered each other again. And my feeling was of, I wasn't awed, but it was great love. All through my life I've been trying to get back to it. I mean, through all my relationships, my children, people I've met, great experiences, you know, powerful moments. I've tried to find a way of getting back there. And I can't, I mean, there is no tangible incantation or special tea or ritual that gets me there. I'll know it when I see it. I long for it all the time. I'd give anything for it.
Into India?
No, I've never been to India. I was told today it's time, someone who I really like said, it is time for you to go. And I suspect maybe it is time to go. But I'm so unable to manage my life now. I was very good. And by the way, I should tell you that I'm really very accomplished at running my life. I'm not flighty and crazy. I'm fairly smart. I can do all this kind of stuff necessary to sort of get by in the world. I'm very successful at a lot of things. But now I feel as if I can hardly remember the details of my whole life. I look back over my life and I try to figure out when something happened and who was there, and it all gets mushy. I can't remember stuff very well. And I haven't the slightest idea about what I'm going to do next. You see before you someone who's totally on the edge of their life. I don't know whether I'm going to continue doing the work I used to do, or whether or not I'm going to start a new profession, or whether or not I'll be under the expressway in the next 3 months. And I know that a thin-haired, fine line divides my apparent affluence now from the possibility of having nothing by spring. Nothing. I could be wiped out. It's that kind of stuff, you know, is that I always thought I could manage. I can't manage anymore. I'm sorry. I can't do it predictably. Okay? I can't. The pro forma of my life seems to be empty. You all know what a pro forma is like, thing you do for a business venture. It's cool. It might work out great, and I hope you're all pulling for me. But I don't know.
Was there any verbal exchange at all between you and Baba?
Well, I didn't say anything. You know, he didn't say anything. I wish I could have said something cute like, no, you go first.
The other question I was wondering about was your mother's relationship with Baba. That continued?
Oh, absolutely. She's very close to me. She's very close to Mary. There's a lot of letters between the two of them over the years. Many, many letters.
Do you have them?
Yeah, I have a large chest of things. There are all these kind of things, you know, like I have 4 copies, signed copies of God Speaks by my brother, of my family. That's like an endowment of great power. And there are other things too that my family, my mother received, which I now have. They should be cataloged and put aside, but I have to tell you that a lot of it is very hard to. I hope you'll forgive me for saying this, but I've put very little stock in the ceremony of loving Mary Baba. I've been very shy about that. I know people put great stock in a lock of his hair, his dharma, books, signed photographs. I must have dozens of signed photographs. But that's not where it is for me. And I don't know what to do with it. When my mother died, people from the New York Center came to look at this treasure trove of things, and someone had to guide me. I mean, to tell me this, no, don't, you keep this, and, no, don't put this in. Because I didn't know. I mean, my mother collected copiously of things from me. All these letters from Mary you should put aside, wrap them up, carefully put them. So, you know, you're not looking at a very sophisticated collector.
Just looking at somebody who has a little bit more.
Well, there are a lot of things other people can say that I'm afraid I can't say myself about things. I try to be as accurate as possible about the circumstances. And there are a lot of things I think about my life which people would say in a characteristic way of there's Baba's doing this or Baba doing that, you know. And when I come to the center, it often happens, and I make light of it, unfortunately. You know, if something burns, I said, oh, Baba's burning my bread or something, you know, whatever it is. But, you know, I don't mean to be that facetious about it, but peculiar things have happened. Things that most people would have said, boy, it's an incredible stroke of good luck. After getting out of high school, I sort of, you know, just wandered around doing a whole lot of things. I ended up being a kind of, I was a computer programmer in the late 50s and early 60s. Very early in my life, I understood something about programming computers, which led to a very, very wild set of things to a doctorate at Harvard without getting a bachelor's and a master's. So there are a lot of things about my life which are quite unusual. You know, people looking at it would say that's a very striking kind of a thing to happen. One would not assume that those kind of things happen. And my work now, which is in education, is very much informed by the work of Meher Baba, things that he said, his description of the universe, his psychology of understanding, the evolution of the spirit, raising consciousness, all the things that we all read, informs me in a very formal, scientific, practical way about the work that I'm doing. And I read a lot of stuff and did a lot of work in other areas, which seemed not to contribute much to my thinking about it until I turned to Meher Baba. And there I found the real jewels, the real powerful insights into the nature of things. So, you know, I could tell you those kinds of things that I think are powerful for my practical life and the things that I do. today or yesterday or sometime I was speaking with a group in the other kitchen and I said something which I'd like to pass on, which I think is really very important. That in almost everything, in the effort of the personality, I firmly believe that the heart must be the master and that the mind must be the servant. And that if the mind becomes the dominant force in our lives, it leads to chaos, confusion, and the only resolution of it is through the heart. I've never found an exception to that statement. And it's the only thing I'd like to close on, and I'd like to thank you. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Satisfied, Marshall?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Our next one. That's exhausting. Where did that end?
That's a great thought. Thanks.
Thanks for helping.
September 26, 1991.
Attraction to God around you to know because it's dangerous for you when you're going to lose your self-worth. It's not working to get through all that.
Give it about 2 more minutes and then consider.
سپهر بخش شده پرویز سپهر بخش شده پرویز نیست خونفشان که ریزش سر کسرا و تاج پرویز است.
You want to get
Says that at this time, the war was happening. Everything might change, suddenly, and the kings they would lose their crown. عراق و فارس گرفتی به شعر خوش حافظ بیا که نوبت بغداد و وقت تبریز است.
Hello? Yes? Yeah.
It says,
Hi.
at this time
Hey,
now
Baba.
in Iraq and in Fars, they all will listen and hear about sweet
Yeah, 7:30.
Songs of sweet points of Hafiz. Now it's time
Yes,
for
7
Baghdad
Southgate
and
Road.
Tabriz to hear that.
7th house on the right-hand side.
فارس گرفتی به شعر خوش حافظ بیا که
See you then.
بغداد و وقت
Bye-bye.
تبریز است. Tabriz is a city and Aram و Fars means Iraq and Fars in Iran. گرفتی به شعر خوش حافظ بیا که نوبت بغداد و وقت تبریز. That at this time your songs is all over Iraq and Fars. Now it's time that people hear about your beautiful song in Baghdad and Tabriz. Yeah, that's the way Hafiz would wrote because he was a traveler. He was traveling all around. And now he's going to go to this.
So he went around to those places.
Yes.
So he saw the danger in the situations.
میگم مخاطر رو حس کرده در جای مختلف نوشته
خطر معامله نداشته او البته به اشخاصهای اطرافی خودش نصیحت میکنه.
Advice.
Oh,
So
good.
that Hafiz wasn't afraid of anything. He would just let the people around him to be careful and just advise them.
Thank you very much.
Could
I
you
guess,
ask?
go ahead.
Oh, you going to do something else?
No, I was going to say we should probably retire to
For the dinner
the dinner. Go ahead,
today.
Dennis. You want
No, I was going to ask him something.
Go ahead, ask, because give it to me.
Scott, maybe bring him a glass of water.
Okay. Good idea. Richie! Bad boy.
It looks good there.
Yeah. No, you got that one. Okay. Yeah. Oh, is it in the car? Good idea.
I'll